U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the Trump administration is ready to abandon peace talk efforts between Russia and Ukraine. Rubio was in Paris yesterday for talks on the war. Before leaving France, he spoke to reporters about the intentions of the White House if there is no progress in the coming days. Take a listen.
But we're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about in a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well. I think it's important to remind everybody that the Ukraine war is a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine over the last 3 years, and we want it to end.
BBC News Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse explains what it could mean for the future of the Ukraine-Russia war if the U.S. pulls out.
It had been hoped in Ukraine that America's gradual running out of patience with Russia would have equated to it slapping further sanctions on Moscow. Washington has been impatient to pause and end this war in some way. And now you have this threat from Marco Rubio, which, be under no illusion, is a reflection of Donald Trump's views. If America turns its back, pulls the rug from its ceasefire efforts, that leaves Russia able to carry on with its full-scale invasion and Ukraine relying on its European allies. And the consensus is that collective weight would be insufficient to counter Russia's aggression in the long term. This is a war of aggression, attrition. And when Russia is the bigger fighter against Ukraine, it means Ukraine loses first. So this is a threat not to be dismissed. It's hard to see how this suddenly brings Russia to the table. And when you consider that no military aid, further military aid, is set to be provided by the Trump administration, it leaves Kyiv ever more vulnerable. Back to you.
James Waterhouse, thank you. Let's get to CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, any specifics from the White House on how they'll measure progress when it comes to these peace talks?
Well, Mugo, it's a good question. We heard some rapidly developing new details about these negotiations between Ukraine, the United States, and Russia today from Secretary Marco Rubio when he was departing Paris after some talks with European leaders there, where he said that the U.S. is willing to abandon efforts to find an end to this war in Ukraine if they cannot make some meaningful progress on this in the next coming days and weeks. This is new. This is a lot of hard-line negotiations coming out of this White House now from Secretary Rubio. He was there meeting with President Macron of France when we heard him say this morning. He also said if it's not possible to end the war in Ukraine, we need to move on. He said in a matter of days, we'll decide whether or not this is doable. So this is a rapidly developing situation we are hearing about now, about whether or not this end to a war in Ukraine is even possible. And I do also want to note that Vice President J.D. Vance is in Italy today meeting with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, where he also said at the top of remarks there that they feel very optimistic about ending the war in Ukraine. And he went on to say that there are some interesting things that have happened in the last 24 hours. Now, we have asked for clarification on what those interesting things may be. We know, and we heard from Ukrainian officials, that there was a memorandum signed between the United States and Ukraine about a potential minerals deal. But as far as what a lasting ceasefire could potentially look like, and if there's an effort and a meaningful way to achieve that, we have not heard many details on that front, leaving a lot of questions about how this administration exactly plans to end, and if they at all plan to end this nearly 3-year-long war.
Yeah, and Olivia, I have to ask you this because who can forget during his campaign, President Trump, he promised to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. So what's changed?
Well, I certainly can't forget. I covered that campaign, and that was a signature tagline that if he was president, the war would have never happened. And when he is president, he'll end it in one day. It's now been 87 days, and Secretary Rubio even talked about that earlier today, alluding to the timeline. He said Trump has spent 87 days at the highest level of government, repeatedly making efforts to bring this war to an end. Then he said we're reaching a point where we need to decide and determine if that's even possible or not. So it's proving to be a little bit more difficult than they perhaps anticipated, especially as that ceasefire that was in place where Ukraine and Russia were not allowed to attack critical infrastructure on either side of the war. They were not even able to adhere to that, and they both accused each other of violating that ceasefire agreement over the last several weeks, 30 days that ceasefire was supposed to be. It's proving to be very difficult to get either of these sides to a place where they can agree on what an end might look like. And now this White House is saying they might just potentially abandon those efforts altogether. Very, very serious developments in this situation that we're monitoring here at the White House.
Okay, Olivia Rinaldi, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for your reporting.